So now that you know who reverse dieting is for, what it is, if it works, and why it works, let's talk about how you can do it, how you can actually set up your own reverse dieting plan. Now, what I'm gonna do here is give you an example showing you exactly how you can increase your calories over time to reverse diet effectively, to continue losing fat all the way up until you hit maintenance. A lot of people are gonna wanna know, how do you know how many calories you should be eating to lose fat, right? How do you know what's an appropriate calorie deficit? I have a full-on video, the most detailed video I've ever seen, linked in the description. So if you haven't seen that, go watch that. Also, if you're liking this video, thumbs up, subscribe. Let's say, for example, just an example, hypothetical, you're eating 1,200 calories. And this is oftentimes what happens with people who are figure competitors, bodybuilding competitors. They're eating very, very, very low calories. This is where they might be at the end of their cut, okay, at the end of their diet. A lot of people, what they essentially want to do mentally is they want to stop tracking. Once they get to the very end of their cut, they do this thing where they're like, oh, I'm done. And then they stop counting their calories, they stop tracking, and they just eat a lot. And they gain all their weight back. And it's a huge psychological mind because you just spent however long, 8, 12, 16, 20 plus weeks cutting, getting as lean as you can. And then within 2 weeks, 4 weeks, you gain a lot of it, if not most of it, if not more of it back. And the whole point of reverse dieting is to help you do that under control. What you have to remember though, when you finish your cut, that doesn't mean stop tracking. It means you're halfway there. Keep tracking, because by continuing to track your calories for another 8, 10 weeks, you can maintain your leanness while continuing to lose fat and then build muscle and add more calories back, okay? So if we're looking at this example, what you'll see is on week 1, 1,200 calories. Week 2, 1,250. Week 3, 1,300. Then we jump to 1,400, 1,450, 1,500, 1,600, 1,650, 1,700, week 10, 1,800. This is just an example, okay? And the reason I wanted to show this to you is because you'll notice week 1 to week 2, it only jumps 50 calories. It's not much. And a lot of people, the reason they end up screwing the pooch is because they just want to add more calories back way more quickly, and they hate only 50. And this is why it's so important to lose fat in a sustainable way, because you don't want to get to this point and be like, oh, I'm dying, I need someone just Avada Kedavra me already. You don't want that. You want to get to a point where you can sustain it. And so adding 50 calories a week and then adding 100 here and another 50, another 50, another 100 is sustainable and enjoyable, because that's how you're going to sustain this for the long term. And essentially the goal here is to work all the way up until you reach your maintenance. And what will happen if you do this properly is until you reach your maintenance over the course of 6, 8, 10 weeks, you'll continue to lose fat because you'll still be in a calorie deficit. The first question that people ask here though, and Ron Weasley asked it actually, is can't you just jump straight from the end of your cut right into maintenance? And you can do that. It's doable, and I've seen people, Inner Circle members, clients, I've seen people do it. The caveat is they're very experienced. Not the first time, not the second time, probably not the third time. They have experience, they are very honed in on knowing what their deficit is gonna be, what their maintenance is, what their surplus is. They have all this dialed in. If you haven't done it before and you're guesswork, you have to go through that trial and error in order to know. And the best way to go through the trial and error is to track meticulously. So going from the end of your fat loss phase and trying to jump straight to maintenance, while you can do it, it's a huge guess. And also what'll happen is if you go straight from here all the way to here, your weight will go up way more quickly. And even though we know that weight doesn't necessarily equal fat gain, it can be a huge mind fuck for people. And if you see your weight go up 5, 10, 15, 20 pounds after a cut, be like, oh, what was the point? And then binging happens a lot of times because you think that you failed even though you haven't. And that's what perpetuates this bad cycle. So best, and this is what I told Ron Weasley, I said, don't jump to maintenance yet. Do this 3, 4, 5 times, then you can jump to maintenance if you want. You might find over time that you actually enjoy the reverse dieting cycle. Now, what Justin Finch Fletchley wanted to know is, how do you know when you've reached maintenance? How do you know if you're there? What is maintenance? What does it feel like? Unless you get a very, very, very incredibly accurate body composition read and scan, you're not gonna know what your maintenance is. Not to mention, it changes all the time based on your activity level. It changes based on a lot going on in your life. So you have to sort of be comfortable not knowing fully what your exact maintenance is, and you have to be comfortable working up to it slowly. The best way that I've found is, number one, keeping track of your body weight as you do this. Of course, as you first start the reverse diet and increasing your calories, your weight's gonna go up because you're gonna have more food in your stomach. Odds are you're gonna be eating more carbs. So initially, you'll see a little spike. So usually I've seen between week 1 and week 3, slight increase in weight. After week 3, if you're still in a deficit, it'll start to go down again because you're in a deficit. Remember that, you're still losing fat. Then once you start to reach maintenance and above, your weight's gonna come back up. Your weight will start to increase again because you're at maintenance, and it will fluctuate between a little bit higher, a little bit lower. Maintenance is generally, you find a stable weight and it'll fluctuate anywhere between like 3 to 5 pounds up or down. Again, if you jump straight from here to here, it's gonna happen way faster, and that can play with you psychologically. But if you do it slowly, it'll be much more progressive, and you'll see a much more clear pattern with your weight, so you'll better understand it. Use your clothes. If your clothes are not able to fit, if you jumped way too fast into it, it's a good sign that you increase calories too quickly. Use your clothes as a guide. Use the mirror in your pictures as a guide. Use measurements as a guide. Use the scale as a guide. It's all a guide. It's not a definitive yes or no, right or wrong, good or bad. It's just a guide along the way. And once you get to a point in which your weight is fluctuating within 3 to 5 pounds of each other, that's about when you're at maintenance. And that's why it's so important to do this so progressively, because if you do it like that, you don't have as much data to go with, and you won't know where your weight lies. Dudley Dursley. Remember, Muggles can do it too. Dudley Dursley wanted to know, what macros should you emphasize as you increase your calories? Because you're eating more food. So should it come from more protein? Should it come from more carbs? Should it come from more fats? Does it matter? What I want to first say is this. I did an entire video explaining how to find out what your macros should be for fat loss. Linked in the description. Go watch that if you haven't already. What macros should you be emphasizing? Now, here's what I think. Guarantee there will be dementors and Death Eaters in the comment section who will be like, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Okay, cool, that's fine. I'm just gonna give you from my experience. Take it or leave it. If you're eating enough protein here during your fat loss phase, you don't need to increase it when you actually increase your calories. You don't need to. The most important time to have high protein is when you're eating very few calories so that you can spare your muscles. That's what's important. I've found that as you increase your calories, it's most important to get it from carbohydrates for a number of reasons. Number one, who the f doesn't love carbs? Let's be honest. Dumbledore crushed carbs when he was around. Hagrid f***ing lives off carbs. Carbs are the f***ing most magical macronutrient ever. They have a higher thermic effect of food than fat, and blah, 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 science, nah. Okay, whatever. Point being, carbs, they're gonna give you more energy, they're gonna increase your thermic effect, they're gonna help you move more, get more, increase your mood. It doesn't mean avoid fats. It doesn't mean you can't add fats. Remember, as long as you're in a calorie deficit, you'll still lose fat either way. I just know from my personal experience with myself, inner circle members, clients, people tend to feel better and progress better along the reverse diet, emphasizing carbohydrates.